If you are new to this channel and enjoy the content that you see, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications to be alerted and notified whenever a brand new video is posted onto this channel, along with following me on these social media platforms to stay connected with me at all times. Also, feel free to check out all of your favorite videos and playlists located down in the description box below. Thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's begin. With the Avengers 4 movie on the horizon slated for 2019, the question lingers as to what exactly Tony Stark is doing jumping through timelines, as seen on the set leaked photos of Tony Stark having to meet up with the Avengers 1 version of Captain America for the upcoming movie. Now, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people within the Marvel Cinematic Universe community are believing that the fact that Tony Stark is traveling throughout time in order to gather the Infinity Stones for Tony Stark to further use in creating maybe a brand new armor, perhaps maybe a brand new weapon and or device, or even forging his very own version of the Infinity Gauntlet, the Stark Gauntlet as they call it. Now, in the comics variation, we've seen Tony Stark wield the Infinity Gauntlet before, as does Captain America, but the only question for the upcoming movie is if Tony Stark's purpose is solely to travel throughout time without gathering the stones, then what purpose does he have in speaking to the other Avengers if his agenda is not to gather all of the Infinity Stones to use against Thanos in undoing what he currently did in his present timeline, which the theory further goes to solidify the idea that the reason why he is traveling with Ant-Man and Hulk is to solely speak to the remaining Avengers and gathering more information on the Infinity Stones and gathering them in his usage to fight off against Thanos, as it is the only plausible option at this point, being that nobody in the Avengers currently, or at least in the current surviving group, is strong enough to even contest against Thanos now that he has all 6 of the Infinity Stones on the Infinity Gauntlet. And if you stop to think about the concept of there being 2 Infinity Gauntlets in one movie, one having to be used by the good while the other having to be used by Thanos, it would create ultimate tension in the idea that you're wielding the most powerful weapon in the universe currently in hopes of stopping the opposition, and the Infinity Gauntlet alone is so powerful with all 6 of the Infinity Stones. The Russo brothers have basically confirmed in their own right on how powerful said stones are on the Infinity Gauntlet. As we saw by the end of Infinity War, the gauntlet was basically burnt to crisps, as we've seen the gauntlet in a very poor state of use after Thanos had snapped his finger, and this is what the Russo brothers had to say about said situation.
After using the gauntlet, did Thanos pay a physical price for using all the stones at once?
Yes, he did.
It looks like it.
I think that's an immense amount of energy, and there's a reason why other people haven't done this, because I think it'll kill you. So the strongest guy in the universe has to be the one to do it.
Is he as strong now after using that gauntlet, or does he have more vulnerability?
But
Can
we
he not use the
introduced
stones to give himself a new sort of strength?
Will time travel be involved at all in Part 4? Can you say, or can you can't even talk about
I
it?
can't even
know
talk
nothing.
about it.
I mean, you know what time, I'm gonna make a joke.
So basically, in a nutshell, the Russo brothers have confirmed that by wielding the power of essentially the entire universe, it even becomes overwhelming enough for Thanos, as he uses that on the Avengers and said universe as well, which ultimately begs the question. Let's say, as an example, if Iron Man does end up forging his own version of the Infinity Gauntlet, being that it's the Stark Gauntlet or maybe the Vibranium Gauntlet, does that essentially mean that Tony Stark is doomed to die wielding this gauntlet in hopes of stopping Thanos? Because it is possible for Tony Stark to die and ultimately being replaced in this film, or at least in the future of the MCU universe as seen in the comics adaptation. And being that Thanos is essentially strong enough to wield Infinity Stones in his hand, he still needed a device, or at least a gauntlet, that can conjure up all 6 of the powers of the Infinity Stones in one while still being strong enough to use it, as of course Thanos is even strong enough in wielding 2 Infinity Stones in his hand, but unable to wield all 6. And we already know based on evidence that the mortal humans that we've seen in the MCU are incapable of wielding 1 Infinity Stone in their grasp, let alone 5 others. So I do believe that by the end, this could ultimately be the final price that Tony Stark pays in his attempts of forging, creating, and using his own gauntlet in his attempts of stopping Thanos, and maybe during the process of Iron Man defeating Thanos, if that's going to be the overall direction they go in, perhaps maybe it comes with a sacrifice, a price, and that price having to be paid is ultimately with Tony Stark's life. Now, when having to look back on Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet was essentially made up of Uru metal, which is basically the same metal and material that Thor's weapons are made out of, that being his hammer and of course Stormbreaker, his new axe. So I don't think inevitably they're going to have the resources to go to that very planet and forging up a similar gauntlet using the same material, which is why I do believe that if a gauntlet is to be forged, I do think that as an end result, it'll be due to using the Vibranium in Wakanda in creating such a thing, because keep in mind, we do have very intelligent people working in the world currently on such precious material. So I don't see an issue as to why Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, Shuri can come together in forging and creating such a weapon in their usage of stopping such a being. However, let's say for example, if Iron Man doesn't end up forging some sort of a gauntlet to use against Thanos, perhaps maybe he can create a new suit, maybe calling it the Thanos Buster suit, and using the same minerals and resources that we've seen be used before on other weapons and such items to counter the powers of Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet while using the same technology on his suit, given the fact that perhaps maybe he has gotten all 6 of the Infinity Stones himself while collecting them through time travel as a direct means in using the new suits in their quest of stopping Thanos even further. But then again, we don't know if it's going to be armor, a device, a new gauntlet. Either way, anything can happen, but I also do believe that Tony Stark is gathering all of the Infinity Stones throughout history for a very specific reason. And let's not forget that both Tony Stark and Bruce Banner have more information, further information on the Mind Stone, given the fact that they've used that said information in creating Ultron, which of course Ultron had used synthetics and of course nanotechnology alongside Vibranium in creating Vision, which later on we ultimately get to see how Tony Stark and of course Bruce Banner also learn a little bit of what the Space Stone is, as does said people within the governments themselves who've been tracking this thing. So it's not like the people of Earth don't have any knowledge on the Time Stone, the Space Stone, the Mind Stone. The only mysteries would actually be the Reality Stone and the Soul Stone if you really stop to think about that, but I don't think it would be too outside of the realm of possibility for the humans such as Tony Stark or even Bruce Banner in gathering said information on learning more about that, given the fact that Nebula is there and she perhaps knows some information on what the Soul Stone does and or is, given the fact that she told Quill about what happened, how Thanos had returned without Gamora, being that he used Gamora as a sacrament to get the stone. So maybe she does have information on that and passes that through Tony Stark, which if you stop to think about it could lead to endless possibilities and everyone gathering together and putting and assembling a new gauntlet and or armor together that can further stop Thanos. However, the question that we're all begging to ask is how powerful is Thanos going to be now as we enter the Avengers 4 movie? Obviously enough, with all of the stones in his possession, he's going to be immensely more powerful now than he ever was before. However, more interestingly enough, we saw how Stormbreaker was easily able to cut right through the powers of the Infinity Stones, as Thanos had used that against Thor right before Thor had managed to pierce Thanos in the chest with his new weapon. So is Stormbreaker going to be one of the key weapons in being used against Thanos now that they understand, or at least have a better understanding, that the Stormbreaker weapon right now is their best chance of holding back Thanos, unless Thanos uses the Reality Stone, the Time Stone, or essentially any of the other stones to get rid of Stormbreaker as a whole, using the Time Stone to send the weapon to a different timeline, or perhaps maybe using the Reality Stone to turn Stormbreaker into a pile of ice cream. Thanos has that ability, so maybe perhaps with his possession of all 6 stones, it may not be that difficult for Thanos to get rid of the Stormbreaker weapon, as that would make everybody else vulnerable while they hold him back, as Shuri, Bruce Banner, and of course Tony Stark, alongside perhaps remaining members of S.H.I.E.L.D., come together to forge this new weapon that can not only reverse the events of what Thanos had done in bringing back some of the newer Avengers, but also putting an end to him as a whole. And the only evidence to support that kind of a concept is seeing Tony Stark travel throughout time, different parts of different stories from different movies of the MCU, of course visiting the first Avengers film, visiting perhaps maybe going as far as going into the Civil War timeline, and I really do enjoy seeing this concept with Ant-Man and possibly even Bruce Banner as they go about in trying to discover and find more information on how to stop Thanos, because at this very point in time, there is absolutely nothing that the Avengers have currently under their disposal that can go up against Thanos now that he has all of the Infinity Stones, even with Captain Marvel's introduction and being the strongest Avenger and the mightiest hero there. I don't think that even she possesses the necessary qualities and traits to even contest against the monster. So by the end, let me know how you guys feel about Tony Stark gathering all of the Infinity Stones and creating the Stark Gauntlet, perhaps maybe creating nanotechnology or maybe some sort of a new suit using the powers of the Infinity Stones. What are your overall thoughts as to why Tony Stark is traveling throughout time? Is he gathering the stones to make a suit, or is he gathering the stones to basically create his own gauntlet? Let me know down below, guys. Thank you all so very much for watching. If, of course, you guys are new to this channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, guys. Turn on all notifications. That way you guys can be notified whenever a brand new video is posted onto this channel. If you guys enjoyed and cannot wait for the upcoming movie, go on ahead and slap a like down below. By the end of this, I cannot wait to see Tony Stark's story basically unfold, because he's been battling with this for 6 years in the MCU, and we know that Tony Stark has been through so much, especially using the nuke in the first movie, having to stop Ultron in the second movie, going through hell in Civil War, and now basically having to lose all of his friends, all of his family to the hands of this beast. I think that Tony Stark's arc is going to come full circle as he builds something that can reverse the events of Thanos' actions and further causing Thanos' death. So let me know what you all think down below, guys. If you guys have any comments or theories of your own to back up as to why Tony Stark is traveling throughout time, I would love to know your theories and concepts down below. Thank you all once again for watching, and I'll check you all down in the comment section below. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.